Imagine that you are the person who was carrying that large window pane that now lies in shattered shards around your feet. You look at the pieces in dismay because you realize that you can no longer put these pieces back to their former smooth, translucent self. But suddenly, a smile lightens your face. You smile because you see forms of mosaic art that these pieces of glass can form. You see that because now you're looking at the spaces between the pieces of glass. I'm Dr. Frank Douglas, the CEO and founder of Safe Haven Dialogues. I'm also the host of the Reframe for Resilience podcast. In this podcast, we engage guests and discuss situations where they use different approaches to solve problems. In short, where they reframe the problem. And we also try to understand how those approaches helped with resilience. Welcome to another session of Reframe for Resilience. I am Dr. Frank Douglas, the CEO of Safe Haven Dialogues and host of the podcast Reframe for Resilience. Our guest today is Mr. Barry Engelhardt. He's an HR specialist, spent a lot of time before that on the operations side of things. So I'm quite sure he has quite a lot to say from that perspective also. He describes himself as a doer of small things, and it's something that caught my eye. So I'm quite sure that we'll hear a little bit about that and how that impacts his view about reframing and building resilience. So Barry, welcome. And could you start off by telling us a little bit about your journey?
Sure. First and foremost, thank you. It's an honor to be here, and I appreciate the invitation. A lot of times I think people think I'm a smart aleck when it comes to my bios, which is 1/3 true, but the other 2/3, I end by describing myself as a reformed art miscreant and a professional generalist. And I really don't know if there's any information in my bio that is more accurate or important than that description, even though it feels kind of like a throwaway at the end. But I grew up in a small Midwestern town. While in college, I joined the Army National Guard, ended up putting 20 years of in the Army National Guard, all in combat roles. I studied psychology, minored in creative writing, uh, went on a military activation soon after college, uh, tried financial advisement, realized very quickly that I was excited to play in stocks and bonds, and they had tricked me into being a salesman and pivoted rather quickly, as you said, into operations. As I grew more and more into operations, I had a lot of HR in the background, and I kind of flipped the script and did HR in the front with operations more so in the background. Through all this, I obtained my MBA. So I really have done a lot of things. There was a point in time in my career where I felt like I was fighting against specialists, and it becomes very hard to do so uh, on certain trajectories. But as I continued to grow in my life experiences, started being able to connect the dots, see life and see different things through the different seasons, I really found a way to kind of see a much broader, more strategic, more diverse picture as a result. And while there were times where I felt like I couldn't compete with someone who was tailor-made for this job or this situation, I greatly appreciate the long and winding path and paths I was on at times simultaneously to get me to where I am and allow me to think the way I find myself thinking today.
That's interesting. As you said, the long and winding path. Uh, One of my favorite books is The Road Less Traveled, Less Well Traveled, by Scott Peck. Do you have any special approaches as an HR specialist when dealing with colleagues who have come into you with a problem or some advice, and you would like them to use a different lens or see a different side of it? Or do you have any particular approaches? Do you reach back into some of your own experiences?
Boy, I wish I did. The smart aleck in me would say that you never bring somebody to where you are by telling them how they should feel or how they should think. I think I often have to remind myself that I don't get it, but it's not mine to get because sometimes someone's very upset about something that I don't understand at all. And I can try to understand, but I'm still not them. I'm not going to feel it, see it, breathe it, live it the way that they are. So often I have to remind myself that they're feeling loss or they're feeling less than or they're feeling questioned. And it sucks to feel that way. And I know how it is to feel that way, even if I don't understand why in the world they're feeling that way at that point. That's not my place. My place is to help guide. I don't think you can tell a person how to think or feel. I think you have to guide them down the path and let them come to their own discoveries through hopefully your educated guesses, your mentorship, your frankly patience. I mean, a lot of people come to their own realizations because someone stopped and let them put it all out there.
Do you have an example you can share with us? Any example, of course, not revealing any confidences if it's about someone else, uh, which sort of explains and sheds some light on how you take somebody down that path, how you get them to look at a different path.
I think I'm going to flip the script at best. And this somewhat contradicts because it's very much someone that said something very poignant to me. But when I transitioned roles several years ago, I had worked for a company who over time had really transitioned away from how I thought, how I felt. And I was growing more and more frustrated and stressed in that environment, not because they were doing anything wrong, but because I was a different person than the system I was in. And a couple weeks after I accepted a new position and was starting to settle in, it was a Sunday night, and my wife and I were in the kitchen. And I looked over and made a comment that very genuinely, very not really thinking through what I was saying, just as much as reacting in the moment, and told her that I'd heard her laugh a lot more in the last weekend that I had in a really long time. And she looked back very earnestly and very sincerely and without a bit of malice in her. She said, "Yeah, you're not being an asshole." And it's, I mean, going to the small things, I've always thought I was pretty good at compartmentalization. I didn't think the stresses of work came home with me. And so that was a giant realization where I was like, I've always been a bit loyal, maybe even to a fault. So it's like, I kind of realized it's like, who have I been loyal to in
Mm.
that journey? Because it's not who I meant to be loyal to, or at the expense of uh, who I would have chosen if I would have looked through it that way, through that lens, through the way it was affecting my life outside of my work hours.
And thanks for sharing that. You know, what struck me about that is that your wife clearly knew that you were in a place where you could accept her honest comment. And so she gave you an honest comment that got your attention. And I think that says an awful lot about the relationship between you and your wife. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I
Uh,
don't know if she was taking a risk or you're right. I would like to think you're right, but I don't know if I give my responses to things always that much credit. But
yeah,
at that moment, it's what I needed to hear, and it really
yeah,
connected a lot of things together in ways that I personally wasn't seeing.
yeah. She clearly felt in a safe place to take the risk, even if she felt she was taking a risk. And that's just wonderful. What are your thoughts about that? When big things are happening around us, how do we respond and how do we use the response to build resistance or resilience?
Sure. I've actually talked about this many times because I think one of the most important and underutilized things in the world is our internal dialogue, our internal narrative. And I think that's the epitome of small, minuscule things that add up either for you or against you. But I don't think there's many things as easy, hard to overlook, but easy to understand when someone breaks it down as compounding interest. What throwing a couple grand when you're in your 20s away and not thinking about it again until you're in your 60s, what that number looks like. And I look at it the same way. I call it compounding effort. Uh, Many times in my life, I didn't go to the gym because I was like, I don't have an hour to go to the gym. But what I wasn't realizing is going to the gym for an hour once or twice a week would be far less valuable than going to the gym 20 minutes a day, day in and day out. Something as simple as if you read 15 pages a night throughout the entire year, you've read 12 to 15 books. If you give up one can of soda with your lunch over the course of a year, that's, I forget what it is, but I want to say 7 to 10 pounds up or down. Like these little choices you make. I think the biggest thing is with consistency, uh, add up. You talk about resilience. I meant I am a member of a workout group where one of the things is it's held outdoors, rain or shine, no matter what the weather. So every morning, typically, or more often than not, whether it's raining, whether it's snowing, whether it's never super hot at 5:30 in the morning, but it can be humid. Just the fact that it's 5:30 in the morning, it's like you do those small things consistently, and just like you lift weights or run to build your muscles, I believe that your mind is a muscle that needs pushed and needs grown as well. The more you learn, the more you pay attention, the more you push yourself during times of peace so that when and if you are at figurative, hopefully times of war, you have that muscle memory to lean in on mentally, physically, spiritually, all the above intertwined, frankly.
Barry, thanks a lot. I like the imagery that you give with respect to reframing, being prepared to flip the switch, and the little things in times of peace. Those little things prepare you for times of war if you do them consistently. And with that, I'd like to thank you for spending the time with us and helping us to think about reframing for resilience. You have a good day.
Thank you. My pleasure.